Hello and welcome to Muddiest Points from weeks 1 and 2. I have taken the liberty of going through the muddiest points you submitted, and I've kind of grouped them by similarity. Well, not kind of. I have in fact grouped them by similarity, and I'm going to talk through them. So please bear with me. Please watch this video in its entirety. There will be something for you to do at the end. I'm not going to give it away just yet. I want to make sure that you're listening so that hopefully we're all on the exact same page as we move forward, because I want to make sure everyone has a strong foundation to build upon as we move into the future weeks of the semester. So here we go. All right, I have my little laptop over here with my list, so bear with me. So let's start with rhetorical. A few of you had some questions in terms of your understanding of rhetorical was different from the understanding that was presented in this particular context of this book in this class. So a rhetorical analysis, what is a rhetorical analysis used for, was what someone asked. And a rhetorical analysis is used for writing scholars to make conclusions and perhaps pose some questions about things that are happening within particular communities of discussion. So you may be familiar with it more from your high school experiences as close reading. It's sometimes called a close reading. It's basically what information can we gather that is both in what's stated explicitly on the page and what is inferred or implied off of the way that either the message is presented, the assumptions made about the reader based on the content given, and in general, like, do you have to have a strong working knowledge of the topic to understand the particular message? Is it something that is for everybody? And so forth. So not to diminish the question, but what is it used for? For the purposes of our class, it'll be used as a stepping stone towards your academic article that will be coming up later on. In terms of making them more expressive as a reader, as we move towards the academic article and we move into each of the larger assignments, I'll be giving you some tips and clues as to things you can do to connect with the audience or your readers based on the content of your paper. So it's not that I'm trying to be dismissive or I'm not trying to withhold anything from you, but please just take some comfort in knowing that I'll address things that you can do to be more successful as we move forward. Someone said that they thought that rhetoric was simply the tools a writer chooses to implement in their writer, not about persuasion. But if you think about it, you think about the tools a writer is using. Basically, anytime someone is communicating with you, they're typically wanting you to agree with whatever it is they're saying. They're trying to give you enough information so that you either see their viewpoint or their expression as being correct, whether that is based entirely on fact or the use of emotion or appeals. It's persuading you anyway, either way, right? To get on board with whatever train of thought they're expressing to you in that particular moment or act of communication. So it's not an unfair thing to think of rhetoric as a means of persuasion. It's the means by which we're persuading, but pretty much anytime you're communicating something to someone, you're trying to get them to agree with your point of view. If you walked into your house and said, oh, I had such a bad day, you want people to agree with you, right? Like, you don't want people to be like, oh, your bad day wasn't that bad. But instead you're going to say, oh, I got a flat tire. My ATM card wasn't working, or I guess my debit card wasn't working. I forgot my assignment at home. I forgot to turn it in on web courses. Web courses crashed and I couldn't get my assignment in on time. Whatever it is, you're going to give people like a list of why you had a bad day. And it's not because you're trying to, we don't think of it as an act of persuasion, but you're in fact asking someone to agree with you that you had a bad day based on the evidence you're providing. So any act of communication is in essence an act of persuasion. Moving into genres, because that's a big one for us as writing scholars. So someone said that the purpose of having the author's points and claims and then analyzing evidence, I'm going to come back to that, I'm sorry. Okay. Dirk is concerned with us understanding genres to be acts of communication where repeating forms help us to construct them. And that writing responds to repeating rhetorical situations through recognizable forms. So for the purposes of this class, I want you to consider genres as acts of communication. And whatever form that takes, there are going to be repeating, recognizable characteristics that help you understand that it serves a certain function. Think about the genre of a menu. It's not terribly exciting, but typically a menu is always presented in the same fashion. You have appetizers, and you have entrees, and you have desserts. It would be unsettling and perhaps cause some feelings of mistrust if you went into a restaurant and they had the menu items listed in random order with no grouping whatsoever. Maybe that it was scribbled on a notepad that was illegible as opposed to printed, and had something that was, covering it, protecting it. It had it was on paper that had greasy stains and stuff like that. So both the content as well as the delivery of the message come through recognizable forms to us, and we take some comfort and security, I guess, in recognizing those patterns. Similarly, if you are someone who's engaged in YouTube, or you enjoy maybe Instagram or Facebook, or you like to chat in games, right? Messaging in games. Chances are there are repeating ways that you're going to engage in those acts of communication, as well as look at repeating acts of those communication where you're going to understand the meaning based on the fact that you know how the person is delivering it in a certain way to reach a certain audience and do something in terms of communication. Back to the menu, the reason for having a menu is so that you can order your food, right? The restaurant wants the customer engaged in the act of ordering food. They want you to be excited. They want you to to look at the content of the menu based on what category you're interested in, or maybe they put the appetizers first because it's the first thing you look at, and maybe you thought, I'm just gonna come in and have a sandwich, but I see they have cheese sticks, so I'm gonna order some cheese sticks now on the menu. The exigence of the menu, the reason for the writing, is to try to get you to order things. You, the reader, want the comfort of a menu having a repeatable, recognizable form, and so take that menu analogy and move it in towards the idea that acts of communication, regardless of the formality, so it could be things that we use every day versus things like academic articles that you maybe write once a semester. But regardless, the genres themselves, these acts of communication, are all around us in a variety of scenarios and for a variety of purposes. But they're always, the recognizable thing is they're always to get something done, and they're to achieve a purpose, and they have the fact that they're recognizable and they have recognizable forms help them be more effective in getting the thing done that they need to do. Now, remember, genres are not fixed. They are, in fact, malleable. There is some leverage or leeway to expand upon them or break the mold and do something different. But like satire, you have to be well-versed enough and know how it should function in and of itself before you can start to break the mold and shatter them. So in terms of genres for this class, the genre worksheet you have this week, a lot of you were concerned about what discourse community meant in terms of that. And basically for the worksheet this week, the discourse community would be the group of people that is using a particular genre or a particular act of communication to get something done. So whether that is beauty influencers on Instagram, that would be a discourse community, and that would be the genre itself, would be Instagram posts. So you'd pick 3 Instagram posts concerned with natural beauty and do the analysis according to the worksheet. If it is those of you that like to game or YouTube in a particular way, choose 3 videos or 3 messages basically created. You could do 3 instant messaging, direct messaging, whatever you call it when you're in video games, and analyze them. But typically, I don't want to encourage you to go into those just yet because there's not a lot to look at on those. If you consider, though, another public act of communication, something that is created for a particular audience, for a particular purpose, all types of social media are open in terms of analysis. If you wanted to do Twitter, if you wanted to do YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, only if they are shared public stories. You don't want anything that's meant to be just one-on-one for somebody because there's too much unspoken shorthand between an act of communication that's only meant to be shared between 2 people. So discourse community and an artifact within one. If you're in Greek life, that your sorority or fraternity is definitely a discourse community. A discourse community is a group of individuals that is working for a common goal. There's like a very specific definition that's given by an author, and I can get you the link if you would absolutely love it. But there's several rules that dictate if a group is a discourse community. But for our purposes, if you look at the slides from Threshold Concepts, think of it as a group that is communicating to serve a certain purpose. So again, back to the Greek life example, if you're in a fraternity or sorority, any active communication that's taking place amongst you, so whether that is posters for events or flyers, newsletters, or something along those lines, you could do that. And that should, I think that should help clear up discourse community. If you have any questions, please post them in the comment section after this video. So that covers rhetorical genres. One last thing back to genres. You were asking about the Bill Hart-Davidson definition of the 4 forces that are shaping genre construction. It is reader expectation, institutional norms, monetary forces, and social issues. And you're asking if one force is more impactful than another, and if they are going to be used in your future research choice. So, because I don't mind spoiling it for you, we're going to go through some activities over the next few weeks that'll help you narrow down the active communication or the, within a particular group or just for the general public that you're interested in. And you're going to start narrowing your focus and doing rhetorical analysis of those acts. So you're going to pick, like, let's say, again, back to my example, you're interested in the natural beauty movement on Instagram and you pick 3 posts. What you would eventually do is, as you find the things that are worth noticing, if you did our Savini reading this week, she walks us through an incredible way to take something you're already interested in or that you're familiar with and look at it in a new way that could possibly, there's some tension, there's something going on that you want to investigate. So what you'd start to do is then look for one of those 4 forces that Bill Hart-Davidson mentions and how one of those 4 influences the genre that you're going to end up choosing to do your research on. And if some capacity or one force is more impactful than the others in terms of that, sometimes you do have simultaneous ones happening, simultaneously, like maybe monetary forces and institutional norms are dictating the content of somebody's YouTube channel. Similarly, reader comments and social influences can go hand in hand really well, but for the purposes of the scope of this semester, you're going to want to narrow it down to one of those particular forces when you're considering your genre. But perhaps as we start in the more like wider net that we're going to throw at, like, what am I going to do research on, you might want to consider more than one of them as you're starting to examine your genres and do some analysis. Don't worry about getting to that point just yet this week. We're going to do that more for next week when the genre analysis and research paper is due. I think it's February 1st. We're going to get more into it then, but just know that we will be picking one of those for you to help shape the direction of your particular research, that you're going to be looking for that influence on your chosen genres so that you have like a guide and you're not just out there in the dark trying to determine what is shaping this particular thing. It's going to be one of those 4 things if Bill Hart-Davidson has taught us nothing else. So if we can pick one, the one that you find the most intriguing to find the answer to in regards to your topic, and then go from there, it'll just be that much easier for you to narrow down your research topic. Then finally, to get to some general questions about assignments and the class. Okay, so some of you were asking if the assignments are going to be individual or you're going to have to start all over, and find a new topic as we move forward. That is not the case. The assignments actually build into each other. So while you're not necessarily married to whatever genre you choose to do for the genre analysis worksheet, by the time you get to the genre analysis and research proposal, you should have the topic that you want to do pretty much narrowed down, and then you'll be building upon that into the annotated bibliography and Carr's model introduction. that particular assignment will actually translate into several pages of the academic article that we do after that. So yes, every single one of these builds upon another, and there'll be components of each of them that will then be used for the large academic article down the road. So yes, you're not going to have to start from scratch when you go to do research for any of these particular topics. Someone asked about an older edition of the book. All I can tell you is that I'm not sure in terms of Easy Writer. The newest one is the one you need, but I know that the Writing Center has copies that you can use if you go there and do work in the Writing Center. You can borrow theirs. Also, I'm in my office Wednesdays. If you ever need to come to my office and look at either of the textbooks, you're welcome to do so. I'm there from 11 to 3 Wednesdays. You can come in and do the work there if you need it. Some people were asking about the threshold concepts, and that their core knowledge and disciplinary capabilities, and that they were kind of vague. So it's difficult at this point in the semester to understand how they work in a concrete way because you don't have the background of the things that we're going to be doing to apply them to. We're going to return to the threshold concepts at the end of the semester as kind of a yardstick for us to gauge our progress. So don't worry that they seem a little abstract just yet. Make sure though that the title to each of those slides is something that you're understanding, like it was genres are repeating, etc., etc. And if it was the targeted learning outcomes that you're still unclear of, please let me know and I'm happy to go through those with you. Let's see, it's difficult for you to finish the majority of this class early because I release the content on a week-by-week basis, only because a lot of the work you're going to be doing is very time-consuming, and so I want to make sure that you're dedicating as much time to the thing that we have for that week as opposed to I want to finish early, so I'm going to push through. If there's something happening like you're taking a vacation and you want to get something done a little bit early, if you can reach out to me and give me a heads up like a week in advance or so, I can try to release the content to you specifically. But I'm not doing like the whole semester. I'm just going to release things willy-nilly. I pace it for a particular reason, and the pedagogy is that you need to spend the time and that I'm allowing for a particular topic and content. You really need to spend as much time within that as possible. And I want to discourage you from rushing through any sections of that. And I'm glad that you're enjoying the online portion of this. The genre analysis worksheet, where can you get some direction to find a genre that would work for you? It says to have 3 examples of the same genre and find a pattern. So again, back to pick a particular active communication you're already involved in. You're going to be doing that with the activity this week, and then you'll pick 3 samples, either 3 general samples of, so like let's say you're interested in, I'm going to go back to my example of clean beauty on Instagram. You're someone that's interested in the clean beauty movement and how that works on Instagram. So you could pick either 3 posts from the same content creator, or you could pick 3 different posts from different content creators, but they should all fit within those parameters of clean beauty. If you're interested in video game reviews, you could either do 3 on YouTube. You could do 3 video game reviews by the same content creator, or 3 different reviews for the same game based off a couple different reviewers. I think you get the examples now that I'm giving you some concrete ones. What is academic writing? That was a big one. The difference about academic writing is a conversation. In the past, perhaps you would have done research where you have a particular question and you go to the library. You're like, I'm going to research child labor and in textile mills at the turn of the century in New England. And so you go to the library, you find your variety of sources, you summarize and paraphrase and quote them, and you put them all back into something to the teacher and say, this is what I have learned about the child labor in the Industrial Revolution. Instead, consider the fact that you are now writing scholars, and someone else asked about a scholarly identity. The work that you do in college is no longer just to get a certain grade or to check a box in terms of, okay, I accomplished this particular thing. Instead, I really want you to consider the fact that you are now entering an arena in which other academics live and work and breathe. So that means that the research itself is no longer just between you and a couple books you find at the library or articles you find at the library. In fact, these are people that have an area, a specialty, an area that they research and they do, and they write about, and they publish. And it's more about moving the body of work forward by creating a conversation that is comprehensive and is constantly questioning and pushing, and for the greater good of learning more about someone's chosen area of passion, whether you're a biologist and you're researching the reproductive habits of conch in the Bahamas, or you are an architect who's looking at the influence of modernism in new construction, or whatever it may be. From here on out, as you start to engage in writing, it's with the understanding that you're writing to other people who share these interests. So it's no longer a solo act in which you are like eavesdropping on a conversation and writing up what you heard and then turning it into someone. Instead, it's being an active listener, understanding and synthesizing what other people in the conversation are saying so that you can add to it and move the conversation forward in a way that is meaningful to you. That's a big difference in terms of scholarly identity and academic writing. And I want you to consider that, because you're no longer participating in writing simply for the sake of getting a grade. Instead, I want you to consider that these are skills that you'll be taking outside of this class and transferring them into other scenarios so that you can be more successful personally, academically, socially, professionally, etc., civically, all those good things. And so that, therefore, the audience, as someone asked for the academic paper, is not just me and each other, but in fact, it's the people who are researching on and passionate about your particular topic. There are a lot of writing studies people that are writing about things to do with acts of communication that you would not consider to be scholarly. There's a lot of people that write about specifically different platforms of social media. So because writing studies scholars and the threshold concepts, like I mentioned, are concerned with the way writing happens, the way that technology influences it, and the way that people are using writing, both in formal and informal settings, and what that can tell us about us as a people based on these acts of communication that are public. It's no longer just about one person who is sending a tweet, but instead, what does Twitter mean about us as a society? What information can we garner about us as a people based on the things that we can observe on Twitter, etc. Okay, so your assignment, now that I have talked your ear off for 23 minutes, is that I need you to like this discussion. At the bottom of the discussion page, there should be a thing that you can click that you can like it. And so please do that for credit that you watched the video all the way to the end. And then finally, if there's anything that I discussed in this video that you're still not clear on, or that you mentioned in the Muddiest Points topic that I didn't answer directly, please leave a comment, and I'm happy to answer it and make it a little more one-on-one and personal to fine-tune and make sure that all of your questions are being answered. Okay, guys, if you have questions about anything this week in terms of the genre analysis worksheet or anything else, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We can conference online, or we can do office hours on Wednesdays. I'll be there. All right, have a wonderful week 3, and I look forward to talking to you again for week 4.